Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's hot Wednesday morning. We just had a town fair here this past weekend. Had our best day ever last Friday. We had a live jazz band. I'll try to throw a few snippets of that in here for you guys. It's just a two-piece trombone, singer, and a piano player. And but they were really good. And they have a bigger ensemble. We just didn't have the money or the space to risk anything bigger than what we did. It went really well. We had a lot of people show up. And even though there was a town festival going on, most people came either through his promotion or through my regulars and promotion. So we definitely tapped into a little niche that hopefully once a month maybe we can do something along those lines. But it was a lot of fun. And it was nice to see the response, and many of the townsfolk who are heading to the fair, which is of course like right there, stopped and kind of gandered. I'm sure it's a little bit foreign to them, but going down to the infirmary, man, it's stuff. St. James Infirmary. These are songs that have kind of a staying power and leave a mark when you hear them. But thanks John Sievers, that was great. Andy or Adam, is it? Great stuff, guys. So my friend Bill Stevenson was here, like I said, a few weeks ago from Miami, Florida. Had another fella coming up from Iowa last week. We drove up here just to hang out for a little bit and talk to Terry, what his name was. And we had a great time chatting. He didn't stay too long, but Bill Stevenson reminded me of a book that I've been told about many times. And I don't get the time to read a lot, but I did pick this book up. It's Notes and Tones by Art Taylor, the drummer. And he's interviewing a lot of the jazz greats. And they take place mostly 68 to 72, these interviews. So kind of after the great jazz age, which most of these people kind of acknowledge in here throughout that. And I've only gotten through, 3 or 4 interviews so far. Dexter Gordon was kind of coy. Reminded me of Ellington a little bit with his responses. Interesting stuff, though. Interesting stuff about Free from Dexter in here. But Miles Davis, I mean, his anger and resentment that I've often spoken about and felt is omnipresent in this interview. He talks on racism. He talks on racism in film and how black men and women are portrayed, and how the best case outcome via these films of that era was you may get to be a house servant, a nanny, a maid, a door, greeter, guard, what do they call those garçons? I can't think of the word right now. Butler, perhaps. But Miles was indignant about a lot of how he felt white America portrayed black America. And he goes, I can't stand those white movies about white problems. I like to see a movie dealing with Negroes as human beings with emotions, not just a black maid or a doctor. I'd like to see one in everyday life, like an executive or the head of a company, one who falls in love and out of love, one who drives a sports car, and one who acts like me or you, who has girls, white girls, colored girls, Chinese and Hawaiian, German and French, They don't have that in the movies, so I don't go. Every time I go, I feel like I'm giving my money away. Some money I'd rather shoot tigers or something. I have a funny feeling all day that I've seen a movie with the same white problems. And he kind of goes on about that for a while. It's a form of Jim Crow when you have white people dancing and having a good time, and they don't show any Negroes or what Negroes' feelings are, or any Chinese people, just white girls dancing with their hair going and going. It's tiresome to me. I want to see somebody acting and living this like I do, like you do, not just white. I saw a movie last night on television. It was just all white all the way through. I figure if the white people keep on showing us their problems on television like they're doing, then we will be able to tell their problems by their facial expressions pretty soon, because they're running out. I was telling Herbie the other day, we're not going to play the blues anymore. Let the white folks have the blues. They got them. They can keep them. Play something else. Just interesting stuff, And I think at times I delve into the black experience in terms of how they felt and their perspective on things. And a lot of times I think a lot of people question or dismiss it. And like, I mean, it just really drives home how different their experience was throughout these interviews. He talks about that people say he's rude, that he turns his back on their audience, and that I don't like white people, and that I don't like the audience. But the thing is, I never think about an audience. I just think about the band. Then he interviews Randy Weston. Randy Weston was a great Brooklyn piano player. Had some really important records in the late 50s, early 60s. Early work at Riverside that's fantastic. His stuff at United Artists starts becoming more African influenced. And he talks a lot about his African roots and his exploration of that stuff. Africa is the creative source. It is the whole power of the music in the countries that have been influenced by African culture, such as Brazil, Cuba, and the United States. It's interesting how they lumped Cuba, Brazil, and the United States in together into this trio of some of the worst human oppression and most powerful emulators of the African roots music. Weston has some interesting things to say, and he's kind of coming from that new Pan-African experience that's coming up in Africa at the time. He talks about commercial music here, rock and roll, rhythm and blues. The problems we face today is that there's a great emphasis upon commercial music. I call it non-thinking music because they don't want people to think too much nowadays. Everything is headed more and more towards the robot stage, when people have numbers and be robots. And jazz is creative music. In the past few years, there's been a great emphasis upon avant-garde music, free music, or whatever you want to call it. It's usually writers, not musicians, who create this type of attitude. We don't control anything. We should control our own press. We have to depend upon the white status quo to judge us and gauge us with everything from polls to popularity contests to decide who gets this, who gets 5 stars, who gets 1 star. I mean, it's a combination of all these factors. And again, the reason behind it all is racism. He talks about the opportunities of young musicians at that time and how it's getting tougher and tougher. Some work he does with Langston Hughes in terms of some of his lyrics. I mean, again, racism becomes a pretty prevalent conversation here for Randy Weston. His father was from Panama. His mother was from Virginia. At that time, black people were going through their own bit. Divide and conquer had gotten to them. They put each other down. But I always noticed there was a similarity between them, that there were certain basic things which were very much alike. So I discovered it was Africa. The roots of all these different cultures and people were coming from the same anchored root. It's pretty interesting stuff. And he talks about how in Harlem in the teens and 20s, there was this whole network of black vaudevillian stars and successful musicians and promoters, and how the whites basically came in and took everything over. Took over the music industry, took over vaudeville, took over every aspect of it, leaving nothing left for the blacks to make their own money. And our music is so powerful, so domineering. It is the whole source of creativity of the greatest country in the world. We don't realize our own power. We haven't had an opportunity to use it yet. While we're going through the changes, while we're finding ourselves and finding our way and getting more and more together as brothers, we should realize it's important for us to stay healthy. He talks about working out and going to the gym. Freddie Harper turned out to be a great basketball player, along with Roy Brooks, the drummer. He says he plays some basketball himself. Again, I'm a huge basketball guy. He says, once we develop a philosophy of togetherness, nothing can stop it because the power of music is just unbelievable. Well, I call myself a natural philosopher, Randy Weston says. I try to look at nature as it is. I try to look at life as I see it. Wherever we go, we've got a very serious problem. We've got a serious problem in America and in Europe. We even have a problem in Africa and also in South America. I've read about how our ancestors came here and changed, how they had to work for nothing to build America and other parts of the world. Their culture, their music, and their language, everything was taken away from them. Yet they managed to survive and multiply, which is fantastic. So I feel that somehow our destiny as Afro-Americans is to draw all the other people of African descent together. I think this is our purpose. It's pretty cool stuff he gets into. Again, he talks somewhat about the avant-garde stuff happening. My objection is that I don't see how this music is more free than any other, which, I mean, it's something I've also said. I've heard Monk take one note and create unbelievable freedom. So some of that free, and most of the players rejected those white terminologies for the music. Ornette even balked at it for a long time. He goes, Art asks him, you say it was the music of black people? And he goes, well, yes, it's true, it was. I somehow get the feeling the word jazz, describes a certain stage in the development of our music, a period when there was a thing that really was jazz, where people would go and get lifted spiritually. When I think of jazz, I think of people coming into nightclubs and hearing music that would make you feel very sad, very tender. Like Billie Holiday singing the blues, for example. She could bring tears to your eyes, make you feel very sad, but at the same time, you would feel spiritually good. When you hear something like Basie or like Duke, it makes you want to swing. Today, the word jazz doesn't describe what's going on in music. Music has become more modern, more rhythmic. It's more influenced by modern classical music. I think music now has become more personalized. I mean, those are all things I've kind of said. How composition comes from that white European, and it's contrary to the blues and the spiritual juice that was the gospel of black jazz music, the blues, and how that swing was a place to make yourself come away feeling better. So it's interesting seeing how a lot of things I said, which is partly why Bill Stevenson brought it up. He goes, you're going to find these guys validate a lot of the things you say all the time. Anyway, it's a great read so far, and I'm enjoying it. Thank you, Bill, I've been recommended it many times. It's just not something I spend a lot of time going to bookstores. I don't get out to bookstores much. I mean, Amazon's at my fingertips, of course. But, when Bill was telling me how it's a lot of an interesting black-on-black interviewer to responder in a very honest kind of casual sensibility, the honesty of it was what Bill kept saying. You just want to hear how these black men responded to a black interviewer who was also a fellow jazz musician and a drummer. And I'm looking forward to delving deeper into it. I'm going to leave you with one last comment here. This is about the Beatles, Randy Weston has to say. I don't listen to the Beatles because I don't like what happened to the music called blues when the white artists get involved in it. I just sort of cut myself off from the whole rock and roll scene. I've been told by people that the Beatles have produced some very beautiful things. But when the white men start singing the blues, I just cut them out. Because I know that all you can do is imitate. I guess folklore has done this to me. I question what people mean by saying they can make music better when they take a simple form of music and put it with this, that, or the other. They say it's better than the original form. I've learned that this is not really true by hearing folklore. And so again, I've often said how when I talk about jazz today, the stuff that moves me is that kind of simple but honest and just outpouring of emotional context and experience and the vanquishing of my demons and the exhaustion of my experience. That jazz, that stuff is what's like, woo, that makes me feel something. And the complicated avant-garde, compositionally creative, there's a brilliance to it. But it doesn't stir my soul. And again, Randy Weston's touching on that. Miles Davis is touching on that. It's expressing how that's lost as the music moves forward. And that white European tradition is starting to crossbreed and remove what was once distilled from this music. And making it kind of thin and without much of its soul. And you hear these guys talking about that. I'm going to share more with you from this book as I go forward. It's just a real quick episode today. Got a lot on my plate right now. But I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for watching the channel. If you have any questions or any episodes you want to see, I got some cool stuff coming on Verve, on David Stone Martin. I've almost completed the Verve 10-inch canon as well now. There's still some pieces I haven't got. And most of it I have in one format or another, either on the Clef 12-inch version or the Verve 12-inch version. So there's not a lot of music that on the 10-inch stuff now that I haven't assembled somewhere. I had the awful experience on Sunday of having a chance to buy a record I needed on eBay and being the leader of the auction, but I forgot to up my bid at the very last minute, and I lost it for $20.50. I've been kicking myself for days. I doubt I'll find another one in that condition for that price ever. And I just hate when you make that stupid mistake. It's just like, it's like, dang. How'd I forget? So, anyway, I'll get back to you guys soon. I haven't had as much time to make episodes lately, as I'm sure some of you have noticed. But I'm trying to reestablish and get my new patterns down here with the cafe. We're 6 months in now, but there's still a lot of new firsts and things happening, and adjusting my wife to the cafe has been difficult. She's had a real hard time with it. So we're working on a lot of that stuff, trying to figure out what's the best path forward. Y'all be safe. Stay jazzing. Appreciate your comments and feedback. Like the channel, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Like I said, thanks everybody. Appreciate you all. We'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.